You can't do that in Figma. Let's be clear. The 3D transform doesn't exist. Based on that, creating these is going to be kind of hard to achieve in Figma. So the basic of Figma transition and Figma animation, if I have a frame, if you want to have a transition like on hover, you need to select your next stage. So let's say my next stage is going to be this element is going to slide down, right? On hover from that frame, I'm going to slide the element down. So what I do from here is I'm saying in prototype, you have the little plus right here. You click on it, you link it to the element that you want. So frame 2 for this effect. From here, I want that on hover, you say it goes to frame 2, and instead of being instant, you go into smart animate, you define your, and you do an ease in, ease out. That's usually what I do in a 420 millisecond transition. You could, from here, if you click that little button right here, that little button right here, or shift enter on your keyboard, you will have the ability to get the preview. And so from that element on hover, you see that my element is sliding down. So that's about it. That's how you create transition animation of that. The rest of the things to figure out what are the animations that you can do and how to come with the transition, like the transition that I just did in 3D. It's a matter of feeding your brain with the most craziest transition that you can see. Most of these transitions are going to be seen in animation, kids movies, where things are going to slide from a table to the floor, and you can see how the element is going to rotate. You can see how the chair of the desk, for example, is rolling, and so you can see that the wheels specifically, because they want to convey speed, instead of keeping the wheel a perfect circle, they make it a bit of an oval and a bit tilted to show you speed. So it's basically going into learning how to animate, get a good idea of how to create good transition. So Pinterest, always good. Animating or animation cheat sheet are going to help you to understand some of the movement. You can see this same thing, right? If you want to have your ball to have the speed, you know that it's an ease in and out. So it's easing in because the gravity is not there yet. Middle point is the final velocity. So it's where it's going the fastest. And then when it reached the floor, it's at its fastest speed, implying that it needs to decrease because it's a soft ball. So it's just going to flex down and then it's going to bounce back. So it's springing up and taking back the speed. And then at the top level, it's going to reduce into the perfect ball because at the top, we don't have any stretch, no spring, nothing. It's just resting and it just goes back down. So that's how you understand or learn these. However, as if, for instance, one of the first things you have helped me with, we have a whole bunch. Yes, going back to the, or staying in, learning animation and how to animate things. You can see if we wanted to recreate these animations, this shiny animation in Figma, we can. That's not an issue. It's frame number 1, frame number 2, frame number 3, frame number 4. You get the idea. And in order to achieve, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames that are looping through each other. So that's pretty simple so far. It's not basic. Forget about that word. Animation is a complex and complicated topic. Going back to the button, for this you don't have much more. You just have 3 steps, Chris. You have step number 1, which is resting state, step number 2, which is hover state, and step number 3, which is click state, which technically someone said you shouldn't have your after delay thingy like here. Like instead of delay, it shouldn't be that. It should be, this transition shouldn't exist. And instead of that on click, it should be a while pressing. On press goes in, and then when I release, it just goes back up immediately, which makes way more sense. Why do we have the left and right columns? We don't need this one, and we don't necessarily need this one. This one is what you had created, so I kept it for reference to make sure that I had somehow the same design overall. And then this one is just a preview of ensuring that it works. That's about it. Because this is a variant group component, because this is like a main component right there, right? It's called frame 2 currently, which I would rename that button or 3D button, just basic. My 3D buttons contains, as you said, my steps. And then when I'm in need of that button in my design, what I will do is I will just take that, place it somewhere, or do an asset local component, place it somewhere, or if that's not how you're used to do it, you do Shift I, which will list off the local components of your file, place it somewhere, which is the exact same action with 3 different methods. And when you have it and it's there, or it's there, or it's wherever, it now reuse the prototype that has been set to its parent. So this is the initial state, and this component, variant group component, contains the animation that you have defined. So based on that, anywhere you use it, the thing happened. So right now, let's say for some reason, which is weird, you wanted to say, you know what, when we are hovering, I want the thing to change color, like crazy change of color. You can see that it's not represented right here in your design. However, you can see that on hover, I'm getting the effect that I just defined because it's made and defined on the initial component right there. So if you want simple animation, like extremely simple animation to test something out, you can do all of the frames that you want, and then you play your prototype and you're good. If you want reusable animation, you need a variant group to ensure that works. So if I'm staying on this one, and let's say, I don't know, for some reason, I need a loader interaction. So you get that center, transition, whatever. I need this to be an angular gradient. That's my loader. I need it to spin. So what I'm gonna do is I'm creating a component out of this, and then I'm creating a variant of that component that is gonna take this thing with a rotation of 45 degrees, get the ID. So far, so good. So now in my prototype, I'm gonna say from here, you go there, from here, you go here, from here, you go there, and from the last one, you go back to the first one. Right now, they are all set to click, which is not a good idea. So I'm gonna just click on my parent frame, press enter, select everything. So from here, instead of click, I'm gonna say after a delay of 0, which is gonna revert it to 1 millisecond, I want a transition of 4:19 because we have 1 millisecond in between each things. And instead of being an ease in and out, I'm gonna make that a linear transition. And though now I want my loader spinner to be present on top of my frame in that component. And so now, if I'm going in the prototype, it just loads as if there was like an image that was about to load, but it doesn't. It's just an infinite loop, and I don't really give a shit about it. It's just there. It works. What you could say is your prototype is not while hovering, but after a delay of 2000, flow start is going to start here. And so what's going to happen now is that we're going to load the image. And now that we have the image that is loaded, we can have our hover state that works. So we can create these interactions pretty easily to fake loaders, to fake interactions. And as you can see, the loader itself is an infinite loop that will always work. And then when I'm moving to the loaded state, it's then the image in the background. Kind of fun is the fact that because this is a component, it can take any overrides that I need it to take. So for example, let's say that on this specific one, I want the initial state to be red and pure red for everything. And instead of being going up at 50%, I want it to be like somewhere around here, because that is an override and these have the exact same name. Now my spinner is red and it goes there because it's an initial component override. So you can do whatever the fuck you want as long as this spins, you're good. So right now it's a center line of point. If I wanted to, I could change that into a dash. I could change that into more dashes. Maybe they have butts, so they are dots now, and it will technically still works. And how do I export it for the engineer? That's a great question. I don't know what I do because some of the engineers that I worked with don't really have any interest in pressing that button right here. What I came to do was, because I'm on Mac, Command Shift 5, that starts, you can see how my prototypes are usually here, that starts the screen recording option with the option to say, I just want to record that section of the screen. And then I press record, I press R to start again, records the entire thing. When it's loaded, I do my interactions, then I'm good. I press here, which you can't see, which is the top of the screen that says stop recording. And then that thing is going to be sent to drop to GIF. That is going to be transformed into a GIF, and it's going to be linked inside of the Figma file. So that way they're going to see here are the states as a GIF. You can see it in the loop. That's fine. Or as a video, if you want to pause at some point, that's the option. And then technically speaking, I'm going to write some text specs for the animation itself, which are just going to be defining the transition and not really showcasing it or giving them the ability to just copy and paste. It's just going to be saying this is a spinner. It rotates 360 degrees in a linear fashion. That's it. And then here, this card slides down on hover. So technically what I'm going to say is we are going to have a slide down with an offset on the vertical axis to 72 pixel. That's it. And then they have these 3 stages and they're good. How often do you go to doing the interactions and animation rather than relying on dev to just code it and have it? It depends on the team that I'm working with, let's be honest. On the latest company that I've been working with, on the first year, I did all the thing that I just explained, which is providing documentation, ensuring that the prototypes were made, ensuring that they had GIFs and video recording of all the animations and interactions that I wanted them to create. They had all the options, all the links, all the clicks, all the things, and they never clicked on any of the documentation that I've provided. Therefore, after the second year, I stopped doing all of that because it was a waste of time. And every time I did like basic prototypes, when I wanted to have very specific animation, I defined them. And I just said, if you want to see the animation that I planned, it's there. If you don't do it, I'm going to complain. And then I just proceeded to complain. Because in the 6 years of working with them, the only dev that took care of the animation and ensuring that what I had planned was done properly was an intern that came in for 2 months, 2.5 months, and was really looking after the user, ensuring that the accessibility was there, ensuring that all of the elements that were clickable had labels and alt text and art area labels, ensuring that the animation made sense, that they also had the ability to create animation in like reduced motion and in full motion, so that depending on the user needs, the website will still feel responsive without really, oh, it's reduced motion, so no motion at all. And that guy stayed for 2 months, 3 months maybe, as an intern. And then the company had a reorganization type of thing, and then they let him go, and they shouldn't have. And then the last year before I left, on the last 6 months, there was a new intern that came in, and same thing, really new dev, passionate about creating good stuff, and really wanted to take care about the interactions, the animations, the accessibility of the app, all of that. Yeah, the dev then made me quit my job technically. Didn't really care. And I feel like when, or at the time when he felt like he was about to lose his position, he started to be really interested in accessibility and animation. It's not just engineer, it's any problem solving creative. In the beginning of the company, you're usually more invested. Do you have more questions about animation?